So I saw that go across the slides that night, and I said, that's it. That's what I want to do next. And then it was a hop, skip, and a jump to speaking with you about, is this going to work now? And then I had the good fortune of being a member of the class of 43.
Welcome to the dialogue.
In this episode of the Dialogue podcast, we're featuring American Leadership Forum Senior Fellow Cynthia Bright. Cynthia is a member of Class 43 and currently serves as the Deputy General Counsel and Global Head of Litigation Ethics and Compliance at HP Inc. Cynthia shares the story of what led her to accept the invitation to the Fellows Program and how the experience evolved her view of her own leadership. She also gives us insight into how the bond between classmates fueled a strong spirit of collaboration that has led to countless joint efforts since even before the group completed their year-long journey. Let's listen.
I took ALF as a personal journey in several ways. Part of it was reading deeper into the books and the materials that we were given. Very early, I took the Falling Awake book cover to cover on audiobooks, because that's the only way it's ever going to work for me. I read deeper into the 4 pivots, which I very much enjoyed and enjoyed sort of all of the ideas that came to me out of that book. And then separately, I took, this was part of my personal exploration to take ALF to a next level, and really, it's going to be what you're going to get out of it, what you put into it. Reading into materials around privilege. Our class did some side projects and some side meetings, and there was a whole strain where we focused on materials that came out of the 1619 project, including those podcasts. So listening to those separately and thinking about what the questions that we'd ask towards the beginning of what is privilege, how does it show up, how to think about it. So those were very meaningful things to me. And then I think there are two aspects that are different from just sort of that academic piece, but a new grounding in somatic practices. I had a mindfulness practice, sort of recharging that, bringing that forward, sort of having a resetting every day, and then also just thinking about the importance of resetting quickly and getting grounded. Those are really nice pieces, and no one talks about that in going to college or in getting a professional degree. So I think of those as part of a greater humanity piece that is a foundation for what's in our heart, for what our day jobs is, for bringing all of our humanity into work, which is a piece of leadership that I have tried to move towards and lean into, and is unusual for my field, which is law, and sometimes can be slow to catch up with cultural currents. Let's just say it that way. I love the time we gathered after we came back from the wilderness. And that was a very special day of deepening those experiences, but also involving a lot of play. And we just laughed and laughed and laughed. And part of it was very much about the experience that we had together. But it was also a very beautiful moment of bonding for us as a class. And I think that is certainly a highlight. I think if I had a second highlight, it would be as we were coming to the end, we were talking about where we were and what it was going to be like going forward. and in some of it is the end of that structure can be a bittersweet moment. And one of my fellows, Nadine, who always speaks from the heart, she's so amazing. She said, "This will not be over. You are already in here." And of course, she put her hand on her heart. And it was just this beautiful, touching moment. And that really spoke for everyone in the class. I don't think that we're alone in looking into a world in which we are charged to do more with less and to transform how are we going to do that and still do it competently. I think that is part one. And I really do like a practice that we have here. We talk about leading with ambition. We talk about agility. I think those are critical. I love the framework, and I think agility and what does it mean to be agile is a critical skill. One of the pieces for us directly that we talked about in ALF I think were two sessions that we brought together and sets of related materials from Adam Grant, and that amazing story of what does it mean to be the firefighter on that hill and watch the fire come up and realize you have to succeed. You have to give up your identity. You have to give up the tools that saved you in every other case to survive. And that's the opening story of that book. And then also the time that we spent with Christy Hardwick around contextual leadership. And we laughed out loud that day in sort of trying to name what context we had ideas in. And one of the pieces she gave us that I took away was sort of saying things in a bumper sticker, right? Can you say how you think about the world in a single sentence? And and once you do that and you say it to each other, you're like, well, okay, maybe that was a little silly. Maybe I can let go of that idea. And she talks about just, move yourself 1 degree, give yourself, she's talking about personal transformation. But I'm surprised once you start using that skill, it is useful in other settings. It's useful to say, my opinion is X, my thesis statement is X coming into this meeting, what's yours? I like that framing. I think the idea that he brings to us is to move self out of the center. And some of my biggest successes have come when I'm able to get to that place. And I also had the good fortune of working with Bob Johansson from the Institute of the Future. And he had partnered with HP on a leadership thing, which I had the opportunity to do in 2018. And I remember unlocking this room full of people and aligning this room of 40 people by getting them to have the same conversation, and by realizing that the answer was in the room, but I didn't have the answer. And when you can show up in that way, that the answer might be in the room, but I don't have to have it, then how you show up in a meeting changes, which is who has the answer and how do we align on the answer? And it's a different set of questions. And more recently, I was at a development course that was very different, more classic development course than ALF. And they talked about the idea of enterprise first leaders, but it's that same ecosystem first idea that Otto has. And I remember showing up in a meeting with a colleague. He was in a different function, and folks in his function were frustrated with folks in my function, and vice versa. And we could have showed up and argued about who was right. And instead, and we didn't have a lot of time, and we were sort of both traveling, but we had a huge meeting the next morning with his boss and my boss, and it had to go right, and we were only going to get minutes of their time, and it had to be a success. And I showed up with a single question, which was, what's the one question that we need to answer to make sure that this meeting is a success for both of our bosses, so effectively the company, and for you and me? What is that question, and what do we need to do to get it answered? And the meeting lasted 7 minutes. And we didn't spend any time arguing about who was right and who was wrong. And we did the reflection that you would want senior leaders to do afterwards, which is, okay, how do we make sure we don't show up here again? But it actually made the meeting fun. And instead of breaking down into bitterness and turf wars, we laughed and moved forward, and it was fast. I think that was profound. I don't think I realized how much of my contextual world is around the corporate world. And prior to that, I came from the law firm world. So hearing the challenges of electeds, hearing the challenges of colleagues in the nonprofit world, and how they think, in what their challenges are, and how they are trying to partner, and how they are trying to work on issues across differences. I learned a lot, and I have a lot more to learn. But it was also exciting. It was also exciting to see what a profound impact they have on the world. My ALF buddy has the most inspirational story. She is literally helping the county of Santa Clara build attainable housing. She oversees the bond, and she's a rock star. And she is having such an amazing impact in our community. We had the opportunity in December to go show up at one of the buildings that has been built through that work. And that's, but for ALF, I don't know that I ever would have had the opportunity to meet her. And it's just amazing. There have been many, and I think they are the beginning. Our class had the incredible fortune to have Rue Mapp as one of our members. Rue leads an organization called Outdoor Afro, and she led our hike when we had our hiking day preparing for the wilderness. But she was also in this transformational moment where she had a partnership with REI to create clothing, co-branded with her organization. And so the super fast, collaboration for me was, I have loved the wilderness. It is incredibly important to me personally. And so I became a fast sponsor of her organization. And then we all found her clothing brand. And so many of us took it into the wilderness. So that was fast. I mean, that happened before we even got to that experience. There are many examples of where folks have turned to, or have fellows have turned to others to help small ways in donations. But we even took the design thinking experience we had in December, and we took a fellow's immediate desire for a next step in her work, and we used it as a live example for what we should do for that day, for that structured day. And so she exited that day with new ideas on how to think about that project that she was working on. And so you see the baby steps happening. I mean, I know that there's more to do. I know that the ideas that we'll work on in the future will be even bigger. But those are some fast wins. I love our charge. I love our charge for senior fellows. Take the call, make the call. I'm just gonna double click into that one. This spring, I had one of the most intense springs of my entire professional career. It was incredible what we were walking through. And that's fine, we understood it. And yet in the middle of all that, I worked for myself in little 5 and 10 minute increments at the end of the day. I'm like, make that call, make this happen, make this 10 minutes happen. And I landed something for my family and for me personally that I never thought I could do. And it was amazingly gratifying. And then 3 weeks later, there was an opportunity to do something for ALF that worked just the same way. Crazy busy, too much time, can't fit it in. I don't ever know if I've even met that person. Okay, but take the call. And so in little 5 and 10 minute increments, I did this email, I wrote that chat, I went back and forth with this person, and boom, we got it done. And so I think the thing that I took away from that was to take the call, maybe small, figure out what's easy, and move super fast. But there is a part that made it fun and made it exhilarating. Move way outside your comfort zone. Dream big. And if you can fit whatever it is you're doing, that is your purpose, whether it's related to ALF or it's related to your personal goals or your work goals, and put it in that format, wow. Small, easy, fast, but way outside your comfort zone. I guess the one question that I was looking at and coming into this was, after ALF, how are you changed? The answer is in many, many ways. But the story that came to mind was one from the wilderness. And of course, in my class, we don't talk about the wilderness, we talk about the nature adventure. I had an experience at one point where something had rubbed me the wrong way. It was a personal interaction with someone. And it was a little disorienting, and I experienced it as unkind. And I just hiked it off. The next day was a hike day. And so I just hiked it off, and I elected to show up and play my game and move forward. And I had come into the wilderness with a plan. And it had actually been born of a dream that I talked about with my executive coach about sort of, wow, if you could, for a day, do anything other than your day job, what would you do? And I would be a photographer. I would create community. And that was part of my plan, was so we all signed up for jobs in the wilderness, and I was the photographer. And I worked in while we were in camp to create this exceptional circle. We had arrived, and it had been a really intense winter with tons of storms. So there's all this bark and dead trees and everything. And it was actually unsafe. So we cleared the bark and pulled out the logs and built a fire at the center that we lit on the last day when we're coming together on that breakfast, when everyone's still silent. And then the final piece, and it sounds sort of simple, but it was really meaningful to me, was cooking eggs over the fire in this cast iron spoon at dawn. And it had been a promise to someone who wasn't sure that the wilderness was going to be a great experience. It was not a place where he had spent much time. And in fact, it was unnerving to him. And I said, it's going to be amazing. Let me show you. And so cooking this egg on this open fire and serving it to him for breakfast when we're all silent was this special ritual that I got to share in the circle as people were gathering. And it was a promise that this moment can be transformative, that it can feed you. And it was a return for the gift of time that he had given me to help me on some stuff that was in his bailiwick. And that was part of his gift to ALF. And then the ultimate thing that happened for me that just put this beautiful bow on it was that one of our fellows said, I've seen you over these few days, and you had a plan. And you showed up and you acted, not caring at all what other people thought. I want to see more of this Cynthia. And as my classmate Tamara would say, sometimes everything happens for a reason. And so I've taken it home that this is my challenge and my sign to be more of my true self in no matter what setting I'm in.
This podcast was made possible by the ALF Silicon Valley Network, with a special thanks to our Leadership Circle members and the 2024 Exemplary Leadership Celebration premier sponsors, Class XIV, Silicon Valley Community Foundation, HP, Silver Lake, Adobe, Salesforce, San Francisco Foundation, and Destination Home. Thank you.
ALF joins and strengthens diverse leaders, creating and supporting networks for good. We hope you enjoyed this podcast and encourage you to subscribe to The Dialogue on iTunes or SoundCloud. To learn more about ALF, visit us online at alfsv.org.